Welcome to the HFY Tales channel. Remember to like and subscribe if you like the story. Enjoy and take care.
The skyline of New Haven was marred by the silhouettes of dilapidated skyscrapers, remnants of a once prosperous city now suffocated under a pall of gloom. Humanity had grown wary, building barriers, literal walls, between themselves and the stars above, where threats were no longer confined to the distant cosmos. Refugees from alien conflicts trickled onto Earth, and with each arrival, the mistrust deepened. Henry stood by the entrance of a small shelter, a humble building cloaked in vines and peeling paint. He scanned the deserted streets, heart aching for the refugees who wandered aimlessly, searching for solace in a world that had turned its back on them. An old sign creaked in the wind, "Sanctuary for all." It was a mantra he lived by, yet its meaning felt heavier each passing day. Inside, the air was filled with the earthy scent of cooking spices emanating from a small kitchen. Henry had dedicated his life to providing a safe haven, a warm meal, and the promise of safety, even if only for a fleeting moment. Tonight, he felt an unusual sense of anticipation, heart racing at the thought of the newest arrival. A soft knock at the door broke his thoughts. Henry opened it slowly, revealing a figure shrouded in shadows. As the light spilled out, it illuminated Seidel for the first time. She was a vision of delicate intricacy, purple skin that shimmered like the depths of an ocean, feathery appendages that framed her face, and large, opalescent eyes that sparkled with an array of emotions. "Welcome," Henry said softly, noting the mixture of fear and curiosity in her sharp gaze. He stepped aside, allowing her to enter. Seidel hesitated for a moment, lingering at the threshold before stepping into the warmth of the shelter. The atmosphere was strange yet comforting, an inviting contrast to the cold world outside. "Your sanctuary?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper, her accent heavy yet melodious, hinting at a language foreign and beautiful. "Yes," Henry replied, offering a gentle smile. "You're safe here. Let me show you around." As he guided her through the modest space, Henry felt an electric undercurrent between them. Seidel observed everything with wide-eyed wonder, every book, every plant, and the soft glow of a lone lamp flickering in the corner. It was as if she were taking in a world long lost to her, a haven unmarred by violence. "Do you have any food?" Seidel inquired, her stomach growling softly, breaking the silence that had enveloped them. "Of course," Henry said, his heart warming at her candidness. He led her to the kitchen, where a simple stew simmered on the stove. He served her a generous bowl and placed it before her, trying to gauge her reaction as she tasted it. The moment she took a mouthful, her expression transformed from apprehension to delight, her eyes sparkling like stars. "It's delicious," she exclaimed, savoring the flavor as if it held the key to a million memories. Sharing a meal, Henry felt their bond tightening, the early threads of connection weaving slowly. After the meal, they settled into a cozy corner with a shared blanket. Henry found himself enthralled by her stories of the past, of a vibrant world filled with colors he could scarcely fathom, of customs and rituals that felt like echoes across the galaxy. As night deepened, Seidel's voice became a soothing melody, luring Henry into a newfound sense of intimacy. Yet, beneath their budding friendship, an undercurrent of tension simmered, unacknowledged but palpable. In the silence, an unspoken question lingered. How long before the world outside would intrude on this fragile peace? The days turned into a blur of shared meals and whispered confessions as Henry and Seidel settled into a routine. Each morning brought the soft golden light that streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. These moments of quiet solitude would often lead to deeper conversations, allowing them to peel back the layers of their pasts. Henry found himself enchanted by Seidel's stories, her voice weaving vivid tales of her home planet, Eloria. It was a world of towering crystal spires and bioluminescent flora that thrived under two suns. "We danced with the light," she would say, eyes closing briefly as she recalled the celebrations that filled her youth. Her laughter rang with a melodic quality, and for Henry, it was a balm to the harshness of reality outside. In return, Henry shared memories of his own life, lost friends, the sorrow of a world divided, and the weight of fear that gripped humanity. Slowly, Seidel began to understand the depth of his commitment to providing refuge, even when the city painted all aliens as threats. Days fused into nights, and with every sunset, Henry noticed a change in Seidel. There was a subtle shift in her demeanor. She became more animated but also more withdrawn at times, often gazing out the window as if watching for something he couldn't see. He kept these observations to himself, hoping that the closeness they were building would keep her from the shadows creeping back in. One evening, as they sat on the floor of the living room, random books scattered around them like fallen leaves, Henry decided to broach the subject. "You seem different lately," he said gently, a frown creasing his forehead. Seidel turned, her large eyes meeting his. "Different," she echoed, tilting her head as if trying to decipher the meaning behind his words. "Yeah, like something's on your mind. You can talk to me," he encouraged, hoping to foster both trust and openness. The silence thickened between them, a fragile connection that quivered under the weight of unspoken fears. Finally, Seidel spoke, her voice soft as a whisper. "It is not the world outside that concerns me, but what is inside," she confessed, her fingers brushing against her own skin. Inside, Henry leaned closer, curiosity piqued. Seidel took a deep breath, her resolve firming. "I am in the midst of a change. It is natural for my kind, but here it feels different. Her voice faltered, and she looked away, nails digging into the fabric of her tunic. "I do not wish to burden you." Henry felt a pang of sympathy mixed with concern. "You're not a burden, Seidel. You can share whatever it is with me. We're in this together." Gathering her courage, Seidel finally met his gaze again, her voice trembling. "During my mating season, I experience urges, feelings, instincts that compel me toward connection and intimacy." Her breath hitched, and her alien nature felt both alluring and intimidating. In Aloria, it is celebrated, a bond that strengthens families and communities. But here, among humans, it is taboo. Understanding washed over Henry as realization dawned. He wondered about the cultural rift that lay between them. "So, your instincts," he hesitated, not wanting to tread on fragile ground. "They're unexpectedly heightened?" "Yes," Seidel admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, but her honesty painted a vivid picture of a struggle he could barely comprehend. "I fear it conflicts with my feelings for you, Henry." Her confession hung in the air, electrifying and raw. Henry swallowed hard, realizing they were at a crossroads. He had felt the magnetic pull between them, the moments of tension that crackled with unfulfilled desires. "You don't have to be afraid. If you want to talk about it, about us." Seidel interrupted him, staring intently into his eyes. "I want to. But humans and Elorians, our worlds shape us differently. We are not the same. It complicates everything." Henry nodded, respect flooding through him. "I see you. You're not just a refugee. You're you. And whatever challenges arise, we can face them together." Time passed, the air tinted with unspoken possibilities as they sat connected in silent understanding. Still, an invisible line remained, a reminder of the differences in their backgrounds. But within that tension, there was also the smell of hope, a possibility of bridging the gap between their worlds. With eyes filled with determination, Seidel broke the silence. "Then let us learn from one another. I want to understand your world and share mine. Together." A smile broke across Henry's face, warmth flooding his chest as he allowed himself to dream. "I'd like that." As darkness fell like a cloak around them, they ventured deeper into each other's lives. Each story shared like a seed growing toward understanding, laying the groundwork for a relationship that neither of them fully understood yet. The days grew shorter, shadows lengthening as autumn approached, the air crisp with the promise of change. As Seidel and Henry deepened their connection, a heaviness settled over the shelter, a tension that neither could fully articulate. One afternoon, while they sat outside, Seidel abruptly stood, her gaze locked onto the distant horizon. Panic tightened Henry's chest as he watched her. Her expression had transformed. The serene beauty he'd grown accustomed to now flickered with an underlying urgency. "What is it?" he asked, rising to join her. "We are being watched," she whispered, her eyes scanning the area as if searching for an invisible presence. "They are coming." Fear coursed through Henry. Who's coming? He instinctively positioned himself between Seidel and the open street, his heart thundering in his chest. Anti-alien factions, she replied, voice steady but laden with dread. They hunt those like me, refugees, without regard for our lives. His mind raced. It was a reality he had tried to shield her from, the outside world that harbored threats against those who sought sanctuary. Henry grabbed Seidel's wrist gently. We can find safety. We'll close the windows and stay inside until it's safe. Seidel's expression softened, her anxiety mingling with gratitude. But we cannot hide forever. My instincts, they grow stronger each day. They are part of me, Henry. As days blurred into restless nights, the air inside the shelter grew thick with anticipation. Henry could sense Seidel's struggle. Moments of demon-like fervor flickered behind her dark eyes, and yet she fought it fiercely, as if containing a storm within her. One night, after an exhausting day of quiet vigilance, Henry found Seidel in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she chopped vegetables. The faint sound of a knife striking cutting board filled the silence, but felt hauntingly out of place. He approached cautiously. Seidel. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with conflict. I'm fine, she lied, even as her breath quickened. I just need to prepare. Prepare for what? He pressed, concern etched into his features. You're pushing yourself too hard. I'm not, she insisted, but her tone lacked conviction. The mating season is upon me. My body demands attention, and I must remain vigilant. It is instinctual. Instinctual or not, you can still talk to me about it. Just because you feel urges doesn't mean you cannot control them, he said, trying to reassure her. I do not wish to hurt you, Seidel replied, voice barely a whisper. Her gaze fell downward, as if the floor held answers to questions both felt unworthy of asking. Desperate for a connection, Henry reached out and took her hand. It was cool and slightly trembling, yet he felt the heat of her worry wrap around them like an unspoken bond. You won't hurt me, Seidel. I trust you. Whatever this change is, it doesn't have to be frightening. Her silence spoke volumes, the weight of her struggle palpable. She withdrew her hand, an instinctual action that cut through Henry like a knife. What if I cannot control it? She asked, the tremor in her voice revealing the depths of her fear. What if the urge takes over? Then we face it together. We'll find a way, just like we faced everything else, he said, determination surging within him. The very idea of losing her felt like a desperate chasm forming between them. But as the days pressed on, Seidel began to withdraw more frequently, her focus drifting beyond the walls of the shelter. She would gaze out the window, sometimes watching the horizon for hours, a distant, haunted look etched in her features. Then, one evening, as the sun dipped below the city, casting a brilliant orange hue across the sky, the apprehension morphed into reality. A loud crash echoed outside, jolting both Henry and Seidel from their thoughts. They exchanged a glance, fear coursing between them. Stay here, Henry urged, moving toward the door. I'll check it out. No, Seidel's voice was sharp, alarmed. You cannot. They may be searching for me. We can't hide forever, Henry insisted, stepping outside even as adrenaline surged through him. The streets were eerily quiet as he cautiously ventured beyond the shelter. Then he saw them, figures clad in dark clothing. Faces obscured beneath masks, they scoured the ground around his building, searching with purpose. Panic washed over him. He needed to protect Seidel. Yet how? His mind raced as he stepped further into the shadows of the alleyway, trying to remain unseen. Where are you, alien? One of the figures called out, voice distorted through a modulator. We know you're here. Henry backed away, his heart pounding in his ears. It was clear they were hunting Seidel, and the instinctual fury she had described was now tangible, charging through the air like a live current. He dashed back toward the shelter, breathless as he burst through the door. Seidel, he cried, eyes wild. We need to move. They're out there, searching for you. Seidel's face blanched as dread filled her eyes. They found us. I shouldn't have stayed here. There's no safety for me. Not here. Then we need to go. We'll leave tonight, Henry said decisively, trying to mask the fear gripping him. We'll find somewhere, anywhere safe. Seidel's expression turned desperate, her pulses of anxiety igniting unpredictably. I can feel it within me, Henry. The cycle is starting, and it grows hungerously stronger. I cannot. Don't say you can't, he interrupted, taking her shoulders in a firm but gentle grip. You have to trust me, Seidel. We can figure this out together. The sound of footsteps drew closer outside, and it was a stark reminder that time was running out. They had to leave, and they had to leave now. I will fight it, Seidel said, determination blazing in her eyes even as uncertainty lingered in their depths. For you, I will try. With one last look at the sanctuary they had created together, Henry grabbed Seidel's hand, intertwining their fingers in a powerful affirmation amidst the chaos. Together, they took a deep breath and stepped into the night, ready to confront the storm that lay ahead. The dimly lit streets of New Haven shimmered with foreboding as Henry and Seidel hurried through darkened alleys, each step echoing the urgency of their situation. The night wrapped around them like a shroud, muffling their breaths as they navigated a city that felt increasingly hostile. Where do we go? Seidel whispered, her grip tightening around his hand as they ducked behind a crumbling wall. The distant shouts of the masked figures rang in his ears, growing closer with each passing moment. I heard about an old warehouse on the outskirts. It should be abandoned, away from prying eyes, Henry replied, resolve hardening in his voice. He had to keep them moving, keep them safe. The thought of being caught made his blood run cold, and he knew Seidel felt that same fear. As they crept forward, Henry glanced over at her, taking in the way her expression shifted from fear to fight in an instant. The transition frightened him. Her instincts were warring against her rational mind, and as they pushed deeper into the city, he felt the tension simmer between them, a palpable energy that seemed to crackle in the air. They reached the warehouse, an aging structure, its hulking form dilapidated, yet mostly intact. It loomed against the dark sky like a forgotten sentinel, its rusted metal door hanging ajar with a ghostly creak. Henry hesitated, glancing at Seidel with concern. Are you okay? We can still turn back. No, she said firmly, her determination rekindled. We must stay near. I can handle this. Let's go inside. Reluctantly, they stepped into the shadowy interior. The air was thick with dust and stale memories, and faint beams of moonlight spilled through cracked windows, casting eerie shadows that danced around them. Inside, they found a small area littered with forgotten crates and old machinery. As they settled into this hiding spot, Henry's mind whirled with questions and emotions. The adrenaline coursing through him made it hard to think, but he could sense that the clock was ticking. Henry! Seidel's voice cut through the haze of his thoughts, grounding him. He turned to her as she crossed her arms, shivering slightly, not from the cold, but from the gale of emotions that swirled between them. I need to talk to you about what's happening. His heart raced, a mix of hope and fear pulling at him. What is it? I feel the instinct pulling at me, the need for connection. It's like a fire igniting within me, and I can no longer fully control it, Seidel confessed, her eyes reflecting the moonlight as they bore into him with intensity. Henry's breath hitched, trapped between the truth of her words and the gravity of their consequences. You don't have to go through this alone. No matter what you feel, I'm here. I know, she interrupted, reaching for him, her touch sending a shiver of warmth through him. But what if this connection leads to more? What if I cannot control my urges? What if I can't stop myself? Henry could read the vulnerability etched in her features, the fear that clawed beneath her skin. Seidel, I trust you, he said softly, his voice low and steady. You have to believe that you won't lose yourself in this. We can find a balance. Balance, she echoed with a touch of irony. What happens when my instincts tell me to claim you as my mate? His heart pounded at the thought, an involuntary shiver racing along his spine. The primal urge within her scared him, yet it stirred something unquenchable inside him as well, a curiosity blended with desire. Seidel, he began, but the weight of her words suffocated him for a moment. Then you'll fight it. You can fight it. As the shadows deepened within the warehouse, a growing awareness took hold of both of them, a sense that the walls were closing in, not just from outside threats, but from the tempest brewing inside. Suddenly, a loud crash resonated outside, sending tremors of panic through their secluded space. Henry's instincts kicked in, adrenaline flooding his body as he moved swiftly to the entrance, peering out into the night. "Henry!" Seidel's voice pierced the chaos, laced with urgency. "Don't leave me." Her plea anchored him, and he quickly turned to face her. "Stay close, keep quiet," he instructed, straining to hear the muffled voices growing nearer. "You have to go. You can't let them find you." Seidel insisted, her voice trembling with intensity. She stepped closer, worry flashing in her eyes. "There's no way I'm leaving you," he declared, fighting the rising tide of fear. "We'll face this together." But Seidel was not convinced, the instinct brewing fiercely inside her, stirring a tumult of emotions. "You don't understand the pull," she said. "What if they find me, and I become a threat to you?" Her words struck him deeply, and he wrestled with the impossible. "Seidel, you're not a threat. I'm changing," she cut in, a fierce spark igniting in her. "You must understand that my need for connection runs deeper than anything you may expect." Suddenly, the door exploded open, revealing a group of masked figures. Fear clawed up Henry's spine as he turned to see the threat unfold before them, chaos erupting. "Find her!" one of the intruders yelled, voice steeped in contempt. She must not escape again. In that moment, instinctively, Seidel stepped in front of Henry, her body radiating energy, charged by the turmoil within. "Run," she ordered, fierce and defiant, her alien glow barely contained. "No, Seidel, get back." Henry lunged toward her, but she held firm. "I will protect you," she shouted, a fierce resolve igniting the air around her as she readied herself for the confrontation. Suddenly, she shifted, a transformation happening within her, and Henry could feel the tension crackle between them, instinct battling love, primal urges at war with shared tenderness. The instinct roared to the surface, and Seidel stood defiantly, prepared to defend what was hers. Was this what she meant by connection? The tumult of emotions crashed like waves, overwhelming him. There was danger surrounding them, yet in that moment, a bond formed stronger than he could have ever imagined. It was an intertwining of choices, love, loyalty, and the primal call that demanded to be addressed. "Together," Henry called out, determination flooding his voice as he stood beside her, ready to fight whatever came next. As the chaos unfolded around them, with masks and hostility bearing down, one truth lingered between them like a burning flame. They would confront this storm, no matter the consequences. The warehouse erupted into chaos as the masked figures advanced, their voices clamoring for Seidel. But Henry stood resolute beside her, the bond between them forged in the crucible of fear and love. "Defend yourself," Henry shouted, adrenaline surging as he prepared to fight. Seidel's body glimmered with an otherworldly glow, the primal instincts within her manifesting visibly, fortifying her resolve. "I won't let them take you from me," she declared, breathless yet fierce, and in her stance, he saw the embodiment of the Elorian spirit, resilient and proud. Together, they faced the group, hearts racing as the first attacker lunged. In a dynamic blur, Seidel moved with grace, her ferocity and alien agility disarming their assailants with fluid, precise movements. Henry felt the rush of her power, the way her instincts kicked in, guiding her with effortless efficiency. "Stay with me," Henry called, navigating the chaos as two figures advanced on him. With swift reflexes, he wrestled with them one at a time, determination driving him to protect Seidel at all costs. The fight was fierce, adrenaline pulsing through both of them as they worked in tandem, a human and an Elorian linked, not just by necessity, but by a shared goal of survival and love. They moved like a well-coordinated team, the trust between them forged in the heat of battle. As the last mask fell to the ground, groans echoing in the now silent space, Henry and Seidel stood panting, bodies interlocked, bruised yet victorious. The threats outside had dissipated, but something deeper simmered within them both. With the immediate danger past, Henry turned to Seidel, noticing the flickers of tension still swirling in her demeanor. He approached her, gently placing his hands on her shoulders. "Are you okay?" Seidel looked up, her large eyes shimmering with a cocktail of emotions. Yes, but I can feel the fire within me still burning, Henry. The instincts feel like a storm. I know what you're feeling, he admitted, voice low and tender. You don't have to fight it alone. What does that storm signify? It means I need to embrace it, she said, her breath hitching slightly. And that means embracing you. Our connection is powerful, and the need is greater than ever. His heart raced at that revelation, the thought moving through him like wildfire. What did it mean for them, with their differences, their backgrounds, and the cultural rift that separated their worlds? You need to decide what you want, Seidel. I want you, he replied, every word imbued with sincerity. But I want all of you, even the wild, instinctual side. We can navigate this together. A wave of vulnerability washed over Seidel as she stepped closer, her eyes filled with longing and fear intertwined. Then help me embrace this. With that, something shifted within Henry. The connection they forged through chaos ignited a deeper understanding of their bond. He reached out, pulling her against him, his heart carrying the weight of a choice neither of them had anticipated. Just as you shoulder the weight of your instincts, I will shoulder mine, he murmured into her ear, every inch of him alight with desire and warmth. We belong to each other. The tension crackled in the air, the acknowledgement of their disparate worlds melding into something pure. Seidel leaned into him, her forehead resting against his, their breaths mingling as the storm inside began to quiet. Then let's join together under the stars, as both Elorian and human, she whispered, a rush of warmth enveloping them both. With that, she pulled back, gaze unwavering, the pulsating need igniting between them as if the universe had drawn them together with invisible threads. Emboldened by the acknowledgement of their connection, Henry leaned in, claiming her lips with his, a gentle yet fervent kiss that spoke volumes of their journey. The moment transcended their differences, combining human tenderness with Elorian passion, an exploration of what it meant to be intertwined in body and soul. As the kiss deepened, the electric tension blossomed into something raw and beautiful. Seidel melted into him, the storm of instinct and love intertwining in a dance that felt destined, inevitable. Their worlds collided, blending the tenderness of humanity with the primal energy of her alien nature. Underneath the dim moonlight filtering through the warehouse, they embraced, their bodies instinctively seeking each other, exploring the vastness of their union. It was a melding of cultures, desires, and a promise to face whatever came next together. In that intimate moment, they transcended the boundaries that had defined them. The forest of Seidel's hidden instincts found solace in Henry's unwavering support. Together, they created a symphony of love that resonated with every beat of their hearts. As dawn broke and light poured into the warehouse, their joining marked a dawn of hope, a new beginning amid the remnants of their struggles. Each whispered promise echoed in the air, a testament to love conquering fear, creating beauty from the chaos. Together, Henry and Seidel stepped into a future undefined by their pasts, but unified by love and connection, ready to face whatever the world had in store for them. Hand in hand, heart to heart,